We're off and running on the Krueg Show Saturday morning, 9:13 on the West Coast. It's 13 minutes after noon on the East Coast, where the coach joins us. Good morning to all. I've had 2 strips of bacon, and I've bet 3 college football games. Welcome to my world. And here we go. We're off and running, and we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Northern California, in Corte Madera and Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week. You have no excuse. Every single day they are open from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get yourself some brisket chili, some potato salad, oh my God, barbecue chicken, the house-made sausage links. They smoke the brisket for 16 hours, pulled pork, and you can see the smoke rings. Man, I may have to hit that place. And we're going to do on the 17th of December, I believe. I'll double check the date, but I believe it's the 17th of December. We're going to do a meet and greet for the Krueg Show at Pig and a Pickle in Corte Madera. So all of our local fans stop by. We're going to be drinking beers, watching Niner football. It's a Niner road game on a Sunday. I think it's maybe the week they're in Arizona. So we're going to hang out at Pig and a Pickle from like 1 to 5 and watch the game and eat some brisket and talk shop and wish each other Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. So there you go. All that is coming up later on in the month of December. We are inching closer to Thanksgiving. By the way, thank you to our other sponsors, New York Style Italian Sausage. I love New York Style Italian Sausage. It's the best sausage in the world. Check it out. MarinAutoglass.com, 415-883-3030. If you need a new windshield, Marin Autoglass is there for you to give you that brand new windshield and to help you save your bacon when you have a cracked windshield. And we're also brought to you by Mojo Fantasy. On Thanksgiving night, we're giving away a Purdy and a Bosa jersey for everybody who goes to Mojo Fantasy, signs up, clicks that link in the description, Krueg, Krueg. They'll match you for the first $100. Here's what I'm going with this week in Mojo. I'm going Brandon Ayuk over 4.5 receptions, Evan Ingram over 5.5 receptions, Travis Etienne over 59.5 rushing yards, Christian McCaffrey over 28.5 receiving yards, and Brock Purdy under 239.5 passing yards. You can do the same as me, or of course you can do your own. Good luck to everybody. Thank you to all the good people at Mojo Fantasy. What's going on, Coach? How are you, man?
What up, Larry?
Man, you're looking sharp today, man. You got the lights going. You got the
look, man.
You looks like you maybe trimmed up the beard a little bit.
No. See, the beard ain't trimmed up.
I'm seeing some baseline there. Like
nah. I haven't got my geometry right.
Some people it's splotchy. It's for you. It's very, it's
very uniform.
Kapler-esque.
Look, Larry, stop it, okay? Buy me dinner first. At least buy me dinner first, Larry. Look, man.
I'll have to tell Brock first, according to the audience.
But hey, man, I'm back. I love the energy. We're here, man. Football's ready to be played, man. We're back off of a bye week. The boys should be ready. They're the men in the arena. You almost love these type of situations. Not even almost. I love them, right? When my back is against the wall, when I know that I've got to get a situation done, the last thing I want is my hands tied behind my back and not being able to have the power to fix the situation, right? They are the men in the arena. They're going to be the ones to actually right the ship and show what they can do. And I'm excited to see how they respond, because they've put themselves in a nice little situation where they've talked enough. They've poked out their chest enough. They said who they are. So it's time for them to show and prove.
No doubt. It's go time. Coming out of the bye week. They've lost 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we've got Zatali Perez saying, Coach tells it like it is.
It's my guy.
Go. Raphael 562 Niner says, good morning, Larry, Coach, and everyone. Raphael also says, like and subscribe, everybody. Yeah, let's boost this stream this morning. Let's take this thing to the moon. Love to see 1,000 people in the room today for the coach and I. We're only going 90 minutes today. We're going to keep it tight, keeping it tight. But everybody hit like and subscribe. And if you hit the like, it just helps the algorithm. More people find the show. And, of course, if you hit subscribe, please do subscribe over at Coach's channel and my channel. And let's help boost all of us this morning. All right, let's talk a little bit about it right out of the chute. 49ers haven't won in a month, and they really haven't led. And here's Jacksonville. They've won 5 in a row. They're the hottest team in football. And guess what, Coach? They haven't trailed. So is the right team favored? The Niners are favored on the road against the Jaguars. A lot of people, I was watching this guy Brandt on the NFL Network morning show, and he's like, man, the Niners, until they show otherwise, they're an early season team. They're not that great. The Jaguars are the team that should be favored here. What do you think? Is the wrong team favored? And let's just jump right into it. What's the key to victory from the Niners' perspective?
Well, the keys to victory for the Niners' perspective is the offensive line. It's the trenches. It all starts with the trenches. It starts with who we are, who we tab, as far as the tip of our spear and Trent Williams being able to show improve, even though he's with an injury. Debo Samuel's got to be able to show improve. I mean, the who's who of this team have to show up. Nobody can't take a back seat this week. Everybody's got to have a part, or they got to have at least some lyrics to the song. And for me, that starts in the trenches. There, for everything that the Jaguars do very well, they have a single point of failure, which is their offensive line. They don't have a strong offensive line. Their offense is ran around their offensive line. They don't run the ball particularly well because of their offensive line. And Trevor Lawrence is always a sitting duck because of their offensive line. That's why they get the ball out quick. That's why they pick and slide. They use a lot of spacing concepts and a lot of mesh concepts, because they can't just simply drop back and deliver the ball across the field. They don't have that, right? So with that, if you look at the Niners, what we're here to say is, well, the strength of our team is supposed to be our defensive line, right? So we need to see a huge day in the trenches. And I'm talking about not only with going to get the quarterback, that's the sexy stuff, cool. But if this team runs the ball on us, we ain't ready for Baltimore. If this team runs the ball on us, we ain't ready for the Eagles. We're not. All right.
I agree.
Football is just simple. This ain't about emotions. This is just about understanding what you're seeing on tape. And what we need to see is, I want to see less than 4 yards of carry in this game. I need to see 3 yards of carry in a cloud of dust from Travis Etienne. He's not an every down back. He is an auxiliary guy. And if he has a day against us, then that shows that we're not as tough, as physical as we think we are. And quite frankly, we just don't have the stamina. Let's talk about it. What are we frustrated with our defense? We could talk about Wilkes. We could talk about the front not matching the back, right? We could talk about Nick Bosa missing all of camp and having to bring in new guys. All of that's cool. But what you can't abide by is the lack of physicality, effort, and passion, right? Because that's what we saw against Cincinnati at home. At home, okay? That's what we need to see completely nipped in the bud when we see the Jacksonville Jaguars come tomorrow, okay? I want to see our identity. I almost want to see our identity more than I want to see a win, because that's what scares me. That's why we win games. Winning the games is the byproduct of what we're supposedly doing on a day-to-day basis, which is having a standard and uplifting the culture of who we are as a tough physical team that plays for 60 minutes and complements each other. That's what we're not seeing when we're losing these games. Everything else is just a byproduct of why we're not following our identity. So the biggest thing that I need to see is our defensive line taking control of the line of scrimmage against a weak offensive line and a bad run game. I need to see the identity of no more grab and drag tackles. I don't want to see any brother-in-law agreements of gang tackling where the runner doesn't even touch the ground. I don't want to see anybody not coming down into the hole and fitting and pulling. I don't want to see Dre Greenlaw getting ran over, or Fred Warner missing tackles, or Hafunga going on bad angles, or Tayshaun Gibson getting beat, or Isaiah Oliver running behind corners, or Diamador Lenore getting beat on double moves, or Drake Jackson not being able to play because he's either hurt or we're still looking for something more from him from 3 games, more from Nick Bosa than just taking over bull rushes. I want to see you get home, Mr. $34 million a year, man. We just need to see it. We need to see it.
Okay, here's my keys to victory. I mean, I agree with all of that, by the way. For the 49ers, on defense, first and second down, okay? They're getting killed on third down. They can't get off the field. But the real issue is they're getting into the other teams are getting into second and short. They're getting into 3rd and 1. You got to get things done on first and second down defensively. And I want to see, more than anything, I want to see this 49er defense hit somebody. I feel like they've just, it's a bring a bunch of guys to the party, but I want to see guys hitting. They haven't really hit in weeks. I want to see some hitting out there. You got to stop Etienne. But to me, the number one thing on defense for the 49ers is get it done on first and second down, and then really understand what Jacksonville's trying to do. Jacksonville has a lot of speed. Calvin Ridley can run. If they put 3 wides out there, Agnew can run. Christian Kirk can run by you. Etienne's got better than average speed for a running back. Lawrence himself, even though he's a big man, can run and rumble, and he's got speed. But they know they've got a bad offensive line, and because of it, they tease you with the speed. They run you off, and then they've got all these comeback routes. And they run you off, and then here comes Evan Ingram, and they're moving him all over the formation, and he is the continuity.
Beating up the guts. Yeah,
I mean, I've been watching them on the All-22 because of the bye week. I watched 4 games of Jacksonville. And
body blows.
And they just go to Evan Ingram. I mean, and he's flexed out wide more than he's in line. He's been in line like 129 plays. He's been outside flexed out like 400 plays. So they move him around the formation. They're looking for mismatches, and they're trying to go pitch and catch from Lawrence to Ingram, and it's really the key to their offense. Why? Because he's the guy who moves the chains, and he's the guy that runs the short route, is a big target, and he's got great run after the catch speed, which he always had at Ole Miss, and now he's like, he wasn't ready for the pros when he got drafted by the Giants, but now here he is a few years later, and he's a totally different player. He's way more refined. And they throw it to him short, and it's an easy throw for Lawrence. So you have to take away Ingram completely. They completed 10 balls to him last week against Pittsburgh. The one thing about Kirk and Ridley is they've got speed, but they don't have the greatest ball skills, especially Kirk. And so, those guys, they're potentially gonna run by you. So you really gotta give them some space, but at the same time, you got to take away Ingram, because what happens in these games is Jacksonville's playing ball control, and they know they've got a good defense, and they're playing ball control by Lawrence just pitching it right in the middle of the field to Ingram. Everything's within 5 to 12 yards of the line of scrimmage, and once he gets into a nice rhythm, then he takes some more shots. They connected with Etienne down the sideline last week against Pittsburgh for a 56-yard touchdown, and Lawrence just put that in there. He's got a laser. Also, Lawrence is tough. So this idea that, he's going to run, he's not afraid of the rush. He's going to stand into the last second. He's going to take that hit. He's a tough character, and he's got a well above average skill set as far as speed and arm strength. So to me, defensively, win on first and second down, take away the run game, and then key in on Evan Ingram short. Don't expect that, don't let, Lawrence get into a rhythm throwing to Ingram. So defensively, I think that's the key. On offense, you really got to get something done on first and second down as well, because Josh Allen against Jalen Moore, which is what could happen. Trent Williams is a game time decision. That's advantage Jaguars, even though Jalen's playing well. And, the guys in the middle, Foloranzu, Fatakazi, and Gotsis, they're not super dynamic, but they're strong at the point. And so they really, to me, they've got two outstanding edge guys. I talked to Colton McKivitz this week about his matchup with Trayvon Walker, and he likes the matchup because, Walker will try to bull rush you a ton early. He's heavy, he's strong, he's heavy-handed. He doesn't have that shoulder dip like Allen does. He's fast, but he really tries to bull rush you a lot. So, McKivitz is ready for that. He says he's watched a lot of film on him. He's ready to go. So I think that's really the key. And then the other thing is, they've got two inside backers who really do make a ton of tackles. Olakon and Lloyd combined last week against Pittsburgh for 20 tackles, 16 solo tackles. Olakon will make every single tackle if you don't get him blocked. So they're going to have to figure out a way to run the ball and get those linebackers blocked because they both run like the wind and they both are really instinctive. They're also getting Andre Sisco and Tyson Campbell, two of their better defensive backs, back in this game. And the number one thing with the Jaguar defense, you have to take care of the football.
They like the ball. They want the ball. They
take it away. They take it away as well as almost anybody. And that's Purdy. Purdy's got to take care of the football. I would say the other thing that's really important on offense for the 49ers in this game, Shanahan and Purdy have to show patience. We're at a point now where the 49er defense has played a lot of snaps, and they're coming off of a 1-week bye, so they're a little fresher, but they've gotten worn down. And part of the reason they've gotten worn down is that the Niners aren't necessarily playing complementary football. From this point forward, offensively, I think Shanahan's got to play complementary football. If that means longer drives, dominating the ball, that's what
you got to say it, Larry. Larry, you got to say it.
Be patient.
You and I both know, Larry. I agree with you 1,000%. By the way, I have us losing this one, but I agree with you 1,000%. They need to get back to complementary football, and complementary football isn't necessarily the defense helping the offense, but it's whatever needs to be done for what the game calls for, right? If we're leaning on the defense today, we're leaning on the defense. If we're leaning on the offense today, we're leaning on the offense, right? And the only way that the Niners are going to be able to play complementary football on the offensive side of the ball is if they start playing J.P. Mason. They need to be able to control the line of scrimmage, and they need to be able to control the clock. That's the number one reason why you take on an identity is so you can lead with the advantages that the identity lends you, right? And if we run the ball, one of the biggest advantages of running the ball is being able to control the clock, control the tempo of the game, and to control the line of scrimmage. So we're up Schitt's Creek a little bit in that area because we've understood that our offensive line is a bit compromised. They're not growing as fast as we need them to, right? So we're going up against yet again another NFL caliber defense, right? And an NFL caliber defensive line. But really, we need to be able to at least get a ball carrier in there where it doesn't have to be perfect. There's a stat that the PFF just dropped where they did an algorithm chart of running backs that have the most carries where runs are blocked perfectly for them. And Christian McCaffrey was far and away the leading back in the league on that PFF stat. I'll give it to you so you can see it more directly. But really what that just sends to me is that we got to be able to get hard yards during hard times. And you can't do that with Christian McCaffrey, and especially if you want to keep him upright for the rest of the season. So I guess my biggest deal is that in order for us to get back to complementary football, then we would have to run a style of football that actually complements who we are as a team. And we're not a team that has a strong offensive line. So we got to get the strength and the physicality from somewhere. You're not just all of a sudden going to have 400-pound bench press and 600-pound squats across the front line. That's what happens when you don't invest. So what we have right now is we got a little bit of a gap between personnel and coaching. And the gap is that J.P. Mason needs to play as well as TDP because they're stronger runners than Christian McCaffrey. And they're a lot more liable right? We can afford to lose a TDP. We can't afford to lose CMC, right?
Well, and I mean, I've been calling for TDP for a month, and it's like for whatever reason, Shanahan, and I don't even think it's necessarily Shanahan. I think it's Bobby T. I think Bobby T just has given Christian McCaffrey just the green light to play as many snaps as he wants, and McCaffrey is feeling good and wants to win and wants to be out there, and I think that's really all it is. I don't think it's anything against Mason. I just think they've allowed CMC to kind of control his own situation. And in my mind, I think the 40, and we're going to get to this when we talk about the speed element, but I just think that, the Niners have to put as many of their playmakers. I want to see them be a little less conservative offensively and a little bit more, let's let it all hang out. And so what I would do is I wouldn't use, I think what they're doing right now is it's CMC. And then when they're healthy, it's Debo and Ayuk. And then if they go to the 3 wides, it's Debo, Ayuk, Juwan. Well, I like Juwan, don't get me wrong, but Juwan was a late day 3 pick for a reason. He doesn't run a great 40. So I would like to see McCaffrey split out and put Mason in the backfield. And I think that would give you a little bit more dynamic look. I'd like to see Ronnie Bell get some run as that third receiver because I think he's got better ball skills than Juwan and has the ability to make a number of catches and really be a thorn to the defense because he can just sit in those soft spots. Nobody's banking on him. So I would love to see them get a little bit more aggressive as far as how they utilize their personnel and not just the same, because really Juwan's a run through you, Kittle's a run through you, Debo's a run through you. McCaffrey, the more he gets hit, seems like he's trying to run through everybody. Juszczyk's going to try to run through you. How about some guys who are going to run around you? And the JP Mason, to me, seems like he's got the power to run over you, but he also has the speed to run, to run away from you. And I like what I've seen from Ronnie Bell as far as his quickness in and out of breaks. So I'd love to see some of their. And also, I agree with Peter King, who a week or two ago said, "Hey, look, the goal for the Niners, they've got to have short-term goals, but let's be real, they got to have long-term goals. They're trying to win the Super Bowl, so play this thing out with both your short and long-term goals. You're not going to go to the Super Bowl if you can't get Debo and CMC on the field fresh in January. Well, they're not going to be fresh in January if they keep using these guys. CMC's on a 400 touch pace. So
Agreed.
Back him off a little bit, use some of your other guys and navigate this season. Win some games, but win some games using more than just CMC, more than just Dre Greenlaw. I'd like to see Jalen Graham activated. To me, it's really criminal that, you've got a defense that's giving up 5 yards a pop against the run. Jalen Graham is one of the most, speedy, instinctive guys. He's like a magnet to the football. He was that way at Purdue. He was that way in the preseason. And on this team, because of some weirdo pecking order that they have, it's like he's sitting behind Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, who was an, safety at Arizona. Oren Burks, who was brought here from Green Bay as a special team linebacker. I get it. They're veterans. They know what to do. But Jalen Graham's special. And you're trying to replace Azeez Al-Shaair. And it's like, get Graham on the field. How many more weeks can you watch a running back go for 5 yards a pop before you're going to get a fast, instinctive linebacker out there? They got to get more hats on the football for sure. And I asked Nick Bosa too. I said, Nick, give me your key this week because you got a quarterback here that gets the ball out in 2.5 seconds. So once again, it can't all be about sacks because they're not going to get home on Lawrence because he's getting the ball out so fast. And he said, we got to stop the run. We got to snuff out the screen game, the RPO game, and the quick game. And we got to force Lawrence to play from the pocket and go through his progressions. If we do that, we have a chance to sack him late in the game. And that's the key to victory. And I really agree with that. I think you got to do a better job and not just on third down, but getting to third and long. They're not getting to third and long defensively, and they're not staying out of third and long offensively.
Right. I mean, I agree. As far as injecting more players, I couldn't agree more. If you look at this is a scheme where certain players have certain roles. Debo's role in this offense can be played with. Pause. Like not like it could be massaged. There's a way that low effort or low I don't want to say the word IQ, but there's not a lot of bandwidth with what Debo is asked to do in that offense. And if you change the athlete in that role, you can actually kind of change the tempo of the offense, right? What does Debo catch? Debo catches screens, tunnel screens, comebacks, spacing concepts, merge concepts. That's what Debo basically catches. Anything that's 10 yards, either beyond the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage.
What's his
right?
best play in your mind? Because I like the end around. I like him with 3 steps of momentum with the ball in his hands. I think that's where he's really dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, but okay. And
you like the hitch screens?
I mean, just giving him the ball is the best play, right? If he literally just does a 0, turns around, give me the ball. You know what I'm saying? But in my opinion, all of those like shallow overs and those basic routes that Debo runs and those comebacks, man, you could be giving that stuff to Danny Gray. You could be giving that stuff to Ray McLeod. Like, those are guys that, yeah, I understand that you want to give Debo the ball for what he gives you after the catch. I understand that. But one of the things about Debo is he's not necessarily a threat before the catch. And he doesn't put defenses in conflict. Nobody's actually thinking about what Debo's going to do if Debo gets a step on them vertically, right? And that's something that you have to worry about when you're doing that with Ray, because Ray can give you an option route, stick his foot in the ground and go vertical. Or Danny Gray can come on a basic or an option or a China route and then turn it into a wheel and get up the sideline. Like, there's things that you can do with certain players on the field in certain roles. But what it is that what the problem is that when you have roles in a scheme and you only fit certain players in those roles, what happens is that you give the defense a little bit more of a backdrop of who you are as a team. And I feel as though that Debo's role is it's a lot of low bandwidth for him to play in this offense. I feel like he has probably some of the simplest things to do in this offense. He's not asked to do a lot from a cognitive level. And I feel as though that if that's going to be the position that you have in this game, where you're literally just sticking the ball in his hands and giving him these simple routes, where the special part of Debo is what happens after the catch. Cool. But don't use all of that, literally, the swath of that offense, literally just for him. There's ways that you can open up your perspective and give it to more dynamic players, like you were talking about. We have a lot of physical players, but we need to get some of these dynamic guys out in space. And having a guy like Danny Gray on the field out in space, you mean to tell me Debo don't block? I don't want to hear this whole thing about
who's this Danny Gray person you speak of?
Like, you know what I mean? Like
I mean, he might as well be Ronaldo Nehemiah. I mean, Ronaldo Nehemiah has made as big an impact as Danny Gray. I mean, come on, this guy, Danny who? I mean, where's this guy? I mean, paging Danny Gray, white courtesy telephone, Danny Gray, white courtesy telephone.
I mean, even if it's not Danny Gray, Ray, like, right. There's things that you could do.
Use your speed.
Yes, you could use this type. You could use these players in different areas, like Ronnie Bell. Like, this is what scares me about our receiving core. In my summation, there's only one player that can get open, and that's Brandon Ayuk.
He's the only guy that gets separation.
Brandon Ayuk is the only receiver that we have that can line up week to week and get open. And he's the guy that we get pissed off with if the ball hits his face or if he drops a pass. He's literally the only. Debo can't get open on his own. Larry, you're a scout guy, man. Larry, you've seen the tape. It's laborious. It's a hard task for that man to get open on his own.
And Jawan doesn't.
Jawan doesn't get open. That is a lot. It takes a lot for those guys to get open. And even when they do get open, the ball's got to be right there. There's really no true separation. They have to get schemed open. So that's honestly what I'm kind of what I'm looking at on our offense is that, yes, we have great players for the skill set and the role that they play. But can they go hunt on their own? Can they go kill what they eat? Go out there, go get open, go make a play. Or do you literally need everything to be schemed open for you? That's my true question.
Every pass these days in the last month looks like a 50-50 ball because there is no separation. You're not getting that separation. Ayuk gets separation, but Juwan doesn't, and Kittle doesn't, and Devo doesn't. And Ray, despite his speed, doesn't. So it's like they've got a tough situation right now, as far as their passing game. I would love to see them try to run the football and stay with it a little bit. They've talked about, we've gone now 4 straight games where CMC hasn't gone over 54 yards. They've got to run the ball. And that brings us to our second topic. One of the most interesting, I thought, tweets of yesterday, and I retweeted it, was from Matt Mayoko. And he put out there that, here it is. He says, Kyle Shanahan suggested that the plan was to begin rotating John Feliciano in to the 49er offense. He'll start Sunday due to Aaron Banks' injury. Said Shanahan, we were going to start playing him a little bit just to get him in there regardless of how consistent he has been. Here's a guy, and I talked to Feliciano on Tuesday, and he was saying, or Wednesday, and he was saying that, he's got more experience at guard than center. He's built at this point, seems to me more like a center. After watching DJ Reader just overpower Jake Brendel, I'd love to see what Feliciano looks like at center. But if you really want to go with where he needs to play, I mean, he's going to play left guard for Banks this week, but Banks is the Niners' second highest graded out offensive lineman behind Trent.
I love Aaron.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be their left guard for the next 10 years. The guy who's been colossally disappointing, even though I love him as a guy, is Spencer Burford.
He struggled.
And it's just Burford is just a walking penalty. I mean, he cannot. And then one of the main reasons the Niners are not running the ball is that they're even if they have a good play, they're not on the field long enough because Burford's making a penalty. They couldn't run wide last week against Cincinnati because Cincinnati had so much speed and beat them to the edge.
They were beating them.
They couldn't run inside either because Burford kept getting penalties. And this is not a 1 week deal. He's had a lot of penalties. So I guess I'll throw it to you this way, Coach. We know Feliciano's going to play left guard for Banks, but Banks is the best of those 3 guys between Burford, Brendel, and Banks. So when Banks gets healthy, and hopefully it's quick, but you never know. He's got turf toe. You know how bad turf toe is.
Yeah, it's got a mind of its own.
Right, exactly. Turf toe could be, I mean, literally, he could be back next week, or he could be out for the year. I mean, that's the range of turf toe.
Yeah.
Sometimes, heck, turf toe could be career threatening. I mean, sometimes it's that serious, but we'll see. Let's just say Banks is only going to miss a week or two because that was the projection. And it sounds like the Niners want to get Feliciano on their line. I said Feliciano was one of the underrated pickups of the offseason because I really believe that he could start. Would you rather start him over Brendel or at center, or would you rather start him over Burford at right guard? Who should go to the bench when Banks gets healthy?
You're going to make me do this. I love you, Larry.
Well, I think most people would say Burford right now.
Spencer.
But
it's Spencer.
I just can't stand getting destroyed by powerful nose guards at the point. Reader destroyed Brendel, and
the reason why I don't
Cox is sitting there in week 13.
Well, the reason why I want to keep Jake is because switching out a center is not necessarily switching out a position. That's switching out like an entire job set, to be able to read the calls, see the protections. I don't know how much onus they put on the offensive line to handle that type of stuff, but that would come from Jake. That's a hell of a big ask to come in as a backup and
But
play center.
Feliciano's a vet.
He is.
I'm not worried about Feliciano making the calls. I just want to have Feliciano there for Brendel just because he's 3.25 as opposed to 285.
Yeah, but I mean, I will put that 3.25 over Spencer. Spencer's not necessarily as physical as I'd like him to be. If you had to sit down, I'd sit the pup down. I'd sit down and Spencer. He's still young enough for you to be able to still nurture him. He wouldn't be destroyed. He's played a lot. He's played more than he's ever played as far as a season is concerned. He's played all of the starting snaps. I think that he could handle it if they did sit him down. Now, if you sit Jake Brendel down, I mean, he's just yours and yours only. There's really no worth in him. Nobody else is going to want him. And if you bring Jake Brendel back, if Feliciano gets hurt, now you're up Schitt's Creek without a true backup center. If Feliciano can do it, if I had a backup, there's two offensive line positions that I would hold on to. I would hold on to my backup left tackle, who's my swing tackle, and I would hold on to my backup center, right? Because those are the guys who literally the offensive line is done if you have to put a guy who doesn't play the position in those two positions on the offensive line. So if I had to stick in Joe once Aaron gets back, Feliciano, I would put him at right guard over Spencer Burford. It would help out with and you know what? This is something now that this is coming to me, it would actually help. Spencer and Colton, I've watched all of their film this year, and Spencer and Colton, they still have like a flow issue where the facts is that Spencer is quicker than Colton, but Colton is faster than Spencer, right? So when they do scoop blocks on the backside, right, what happens is that Spencer tends to leave Colton too fast, and there's a natural gap between the trade-off for them going to the second level, and Colton never gets there in time. And a lot of that is because Spencer is a quick-footed, agile athlete because he's going from tackle to guard. But some of that is strength. Some of that is Spencer doesn't want to stay there long enough to get blown off the ball. He knows that the best he has is my initial surge off the ball. Me throwing my body forward on top of my strength is the best I got. Once we're at the point of attack and that man gets his hands on me, I'm done for. I'm going for a ride. So I feel like just by almost atrophied the fact that he doesn't have the strength, he lunges at players to try to generate power, but he doesn't stay long enough to actually help out his teammate. If we're talking about maybe a ball going to the left-hand side on the backside flow in the scoop block. Conversely, on the front side, when they're doing combo blocks, Colton ends up leaving Spencer all the time. Colton has stronger hands, but Spencer isn't strong enough to be able to get around that point of attack, get around that end or that five, or to go up to that backside backer. And it happens literally every run play they have. It's either they go backside, Spencer isn't strong enough to hold. If they go front side, backside, Spencer isn't strong enough to hold off that 3 tech so Colton can come over, right? So he leaves too quick. And then when they go backside or outside, Colton is too fast for Spencer, and Spencer's either not strong enough to hold the point of attack. He lets depth up the field, and they create a brand new edge. A lot of times ball carriers have to either spill inside or bounce prematurely, throwing off rush angles that they don't want to have. So a lot of those issues with our run game, especially in zone, with outside zone and inside zone, is being able to all step in unison, all be on the same plane as far as the line of scrimmage is concerned. And what kills outside and inside zone is penetration, especially outside zone. And Spencer Burford, when he gets moving laterally, he does not have the strength not to get penetrated. Pause. So Joe Feliciano coming in at right guard after Aaron Banks comes back from his turf toe injury, I think that would be the best move, because I would love to see what that looks like with that new combo on the right side, because I've seen enough of Spencer Burford and Colton McKivitz. It's always going to be like that week in and week out.
You know, the big the big topic of the week, and it's funny because I don't know why this was a big topic this week. People are acting like this is just moving heaven and earth, but Steve Wilks is moving to the sideline from the booth. And it was interesting to ask Shanahan about it, and he's like, I want him to have better dialogue with the linebackers. And then I asked Dre Greenlaw, he's like, about it. He's like, hey, man, it's the same calls as last year. We're just not executing. It's not on Steve and I didn't get a chance to ask Steve a question this week because the presser passed me by somehow. And I didn't get my question in, but I wanted to say to him, hey, look, I believe it. I think I don't think he's being scapegoated, but at the same, because that sounds like it's very nefarious and, some kind of predetermined thing. But I do think that this is a lot about nothing. I mean, is where Steve Wilks sits or stands going to make the coverage tighter? Is where Steve Wilks sits or stands going to make guys wrap up better and stop missing tackles? Is where he sits or stands going to help defensive linemen get off blocks? I mean, I think this is a much ado about nothing, to be completely honest. But I want to let everybody hear. I'm going to share the screen here and let you guys hear Steve Wilks in his own words. Here's Wilks from earlier this week when asked a little bit about the situation of his move from the box to the field.
Yesterday, moved out to the field. What was kind of your input into that decision, and how do you think it can help?
Oh, I mean, guys, to me, I think just very candid, I think we're making a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be honest. But I just want to be able to communicate with the guys a little bit more during the game. Certain things that I'm seeing, I'd rather be able to talk to them directly than to communicate with coaches. I think our coaches do a great job, number one, throughout the week, but also in-game adjustments. That's one of the things I've really, pride ourselves on, and how we communicate as a staff and making the right things throughout the game. So it's just really with me, just wanting to be able to communicate with those guys a little bit more.
So there you go, a little bit of Wilks. And the way, I guess, from my understanding of it, Coach, the way it's gone down to this point is that Wilks talks to Johnny Holland, that is the linebacker coach. Johnny talks to the backers. And Shanahan, in some radio interviews later in the week, basically said he'd like the dialogue to be a little bit more streamlined between Wilks and the linebackers. When Lynch was asked about it late in the week, he made the point, and it's a good one, that, the 49, it's kind of like these students, in this case, these players, are accustomed to having that defensive coordinator on the sideline. And so, like, Steve was brought in. This is not Steve's system. This is Salah's system or D'Amico's system or some combination thereof that Steve is running. And that was what he knew the deal was when he came here, was that he was going to run somebody else's system. So he's always adapted to the Niners. They haven't adapted to him. So it kind of goes to make sense that he would adapt to what the Niner players are comfortable with or accustomed to more than what he's accustomed to. I didn't get a chance to ask him, because the guy's been doing it for 20 years. How many of those years did you spend in the booth? How many of those years have you spent on the sideline? I guarantee you it's some combination thereof. It's not all one or all the other. So I once again, I don't think it's huge. I do think it could potentially help the communication. But to me, I don't see this as being any kind of like if they stop Jacksonville this week, see, Steve Wilks on the sideline made all the difference. No, don't tell me that. I'm not buying that at the end of the week. No matter how this thing goes, I'm not going to say, well, it was because Steve stopped watching in the booth. And if it was up to me, I would say, Steve, where are you most comfortable? Because you're kind of the doctor, and we need a correct diagnosis, and your perspective and how you watch the game. I want you to be where you're comfortable, but they've just kind of prioritized their players' comfort over Steve's comfort. And I'll say this, just from being around the team all the time, this has been a drumbeat for several weeks. Tim Ryan's been talking about it. Tim goes to practice. That means either the players or coaches are talking about it. Either something's getting lost in translation between Steve to Johnny Holland to the players, or Steve's message is not getting imparted, or maybe it's not getting imparted with the right urgency, or maybe this is all much ado about nothing and their struggles on defense are all personnel related. Give me your read on the story of the week, which is Wilks, changing seats for the game.
I think it's bullshit. It's not going to change anything. You coach how you coach. You coach how you want to coach. Outside of him having to learn the defense and do things the way this defense is ran, I mean, when you hire a guy to come in and do some work on your house, you don't pick up the paintbrush and start telling him how you want him to do things. It's like, no,
I'd like shorter strokes. Could you use more wrist action?
Whoa, Larry. Hey, yo. I stayed away from it. I was gonna say it, but hey, yo,
wax on, wax off, wax on.
Larry, you've been on one today, baby. But what I'm saying is,
I don't know if I would have done that. Just second guessing everybody left and right. You really want to nail that there? You sure you don't want to?
On 2 different levels, bro.
Sure you don't want to use some glue?
Some glue, yo.
How you gonna pull that up before you work on that? What are you gonna do? No. Here, I'm paying you. You're the specialist. Go do it.
All right, yo. He's the specialist. Go do it, Larry. We got to talk after this, man. I gotta get you aware of what you're saying, dog. I gotta get you right now. You don't know what you're saying.
Wax on, wax off, left and right.
Yo,
do you always go horizontal like that? I'd prefer if it was vertical.
Horizontal and vertical strokes. Hey, yo. So look, all I'm saying is that for him to be on the sideline, I want to be fair. On one hand, we can say, yeah, Coach Wilks, do the job the way you want to do the job, right? It's a little bit petty for us to be telling you, oh, well, the guys, they're more accustomed to being led from the sideline versus in the booth, right? And what I'm saying is that maybe there can be a little bit of change of process for Coach Wilks, because this is, quite frankly, the best team that Coach Wilks has coached on in the NFL. This is the best defense he's ever had, right? So maybe he can learn some new things, because coaching ultimately is about learning. It's about teaching, right? And understanding lessons that come along. And when you're a coach, it's kind of your job to find those lessons. Nobody gets to point them out for you, right? And I like his approach with understanding that, with him even taking umbrage with being on or off the sideline, what he's doing is being a leader, because he's understanding that if I say that me being on the sideline is good or bad, what it truthfully is saying is that I have there's a problem with communication with me and my coaching staff. So even in a way, while Coach Wilks is being thrown under the bus or scapegoated, he's still defending his defensive staff. I feel like we look at this and feel like, all right, well, if Wilks is the DC, then and everybody else under him is just Kyle's guys, or they're just an incumbent. They're just an incumbent staff. But the truth is that Wilks is looking out for his guys who are having a little bit of a problem communicating on their own side. That's something that we're not going to look at, because he's the head guy. He's the DC. But really, how good was our defensive staff? How good was our defensive staff under DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh, and how much of the slack did they pick up by being on the field, right? So that's a whole nother element to this that I feel like nobody's looking at. I mean, Coach Krueger is supposed to be persona non grata as far as beyond reproach. He's supposed to be the defensive coach, a defensive line coach of all defensive line coaches, but our defensive line has been ass. They've been the ones getting tore up, and he gets the best players with the most money, with the best free agents. You're getting all the trades. So a lot of this is, I mean, we're looking at Coach Wilkes. This is also Coach Krueger as well. You know, I mean, I understand that sounds weird to say, but all options are on the table, especially when you're talking about trying to win a football season and understanding what's happening. So, yeah, ultimately, yes, I do think it's bullshit. I think that he should be able to coach wherever he wants, but I feel like the defense within and of itself is starting to realize that I said this when we first started winning, Larry. I took the cheese, man. I feel so bad for saying this, but I did. I said we're an offensive-led team. I was so impressed with how aggressive we were being on offense, but I was fooled again. We're not no offensive-led team. As soon as we started losing, even in low-scoring games, right? Cincinnati's the only real blowout. Even in low-scoring games, what is the first thing we looked at? Our defense. Who's the first coach we looked at? Our DC. Who are the players that we're putting on the slab? Our defensive players. This team is led by their defense. And you can look back
they're now mid-pack defensively, by the way, and they're 27th. They're 27th against the run.
If we're a mid-pack defense, then that means that we're a mid-pack team because our offense ain't better than our defense.
Well, they're number two DVOA offense, or maybe number one. Number one DVOA.
They've been off for a couple of weeks. It ain't caught up to them. The numbers ain't caught up to them yet. But
even with these last 3 weeks, they're still DVOA 1 or 2 on offense. They're mid-pack on D.
Dude, don't Lombardi me, man. I'm
just saying those are the numbers.
All right, I'm just saying, man.
I mean, seriously, no. We can cherry pick. I'm just saying we can cherry pick any number we want, right? But I'm just telling you, if you don't, either you don't believe in DVOA or you do, and if there's people that don't, that's fine. But I'm just saying DVOA. If you're looking at the DVOA, some people believe that's an all-encompassing number. Lots of people quote it, not just Dave. They're mid-pack on D, and it's a
dorky fucking stat. It's a dorky stat.
Okay. I'm not going to argue that. All right. But the run D is a problem. And I would say now, granted, everybody looks at it from their own perspective, right? I'm a personnel guy. That's my background. I look at it as personnel. I don't look at it as Steve Wilkes ain't doing the job. Now, it bothers me that Steve Wilkes has had 16 different employers in the last decade or so. You know what I mean? That's a lot of moving around. That bothers me. That bothers me no matter what. I don't care what job you're in. If you've moved jobs 16 times in 10 years or, 16 times in 20 years or whatever it is, that's a lot of moving, and it makes me wonder. But he comes highly recommended. I'm not going to say that Steve's not a good coach. But the run defense, I think, has just been a problem all year. I brought it up to Shanahan literally in September. Coach, listen to these numbers. In the preseason, the Niners gave up 6.5 yards a carry to the Chargers, 120 yards to the Raiders, 6.5 yards a carry to Denver. They gave up 552 in 3 games. I asked Shanahan going into week 1, are you worried about your run Ds? Like I would be if it was based on this preseason, but we were number 1 in the run last year. I'm like, all right, that was a good enough answer for me at the time. Then week 1, they lead 20-7 at the half. Najee only carried 6 times in the game. Their offense kind of took away Pittsburgh's run game. In week 2, the Rams came out with a pass-happy game plan, 55 passes, 22 runs. Still, Kyron Williams ran for over 4 yards a carry. Week 3, the Giants had just lost Saquon Barkley. It was a pass-happy game plan. They only had 11 runs the entire game. Matt Breida only carried 4 times, and it looked like the Niners were stopping the run. But in reality, the Giants weren't really committing to the run. Week 4, Niners got up 21-10 on Arizona. James Conner only had 11 carries, but he still ran for 4.7 a carry. So that was the first indicator of maybe there's a problem here. Week 5, they got up 21-7 at halftime against Dallas. Tony Pollard only had 8 carries. Dallas never committed to the run. Prescott threw some second-half picks, and the Niners blew them out. Then we get to week 6 where all the problems start. Cleveland, with the third-ranked rushing offense in football, committed to the run, ran for 4.7 a carry on 34 carries. Jerome Ford had the late 20-yard run, and they ran it down the Niners' throat. Then,
but before that game, I don't want to kill your thunder. Before that game, that's what we had already Cleveland game. We had already had Randy Gregory by then, right?
I think that might have been the first game of Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
But week 7 against Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins carved him up like a Halloween
turkey,
pumpkin,
boy.
or Thanksgiving turkey. But Alexander Madison only had 8 carries, but he ran for 5 yards a carry, 4.9 a carry, and that was Minnesota was the 29th rated rush offense, and Madison still ran for 5 yards a carry. Then Cincinnati in the last game, they rolled in with the worst rushing offense in the NFL, and Mixon averaged 5.4 a carry. Cincinnati as a team ran for 5 yards a carry. It looked like nobody on the Niner defense even wanted to stand in front of any of these guys. So not only has their run D been bad, it's getting worse every single week. Now this week, Jacksonville's got a mid-pack rushing attack, 14th in the league. Etienne goes for 3.9 a carry. If we come out of this game and they've run it down the Niners' throat and Etienne goes for 5 yards a pop, they got major problems. Why? Because Philly's looming, and they've got the 7th rated rush offense. Swift goes for 4 or 5 a carry. Baltimore's looming on Christmas night, and they've got the number 1 rushing attack, and they've just discovered this kid Keaton Mitchell, and obviously they have Lamar. I'm just saying the run D is clearly. We can talk about Purdy, we can talk about Shanahan, we can talk about Wilkes' seat in the stadium, we can talk about all kinds of things. The run defense is the big issue with this team. Hargrave has been a colossal disappointment. Kinlaw does not come off blocks. The Greenlaw and Warner made all the tackles in the early part of the year, and now Greenlaw is so beat up that he's taking shots for his ankle, his shoulder. He's feeling better coming out of the bye week, but he's been ridden way too hard. They don't have Aziz. They don't have the edge-setting Samson Ebukam up front. They don't have the edge-setting Emmanuel Mosley on the back end. They don't have Jimmy Ward, who was a hitter. They don't have Tart from a couple years ago. They don't have DJ Jones from a couple years ago. We've seen, and then all these subtractions on defense. They took away Ebukam, Amenahue, Jordan Willis, Jimmy Ward, Emmanuel Mosley. And what did they add? Well, they added Hargrave, but then they added Jalen Graham, Jair Brown, D. Winters, but they're redshirting those guys. Those guys are getting no run at all. So it basically, like, you took away 6 or 7 key run defenders. You added Hargrave, who himself is not known as a great run defender. And surprise, surprise, you're not stopping the run. So to me, we can talk about Wilkes and we can talk about all this other crap, but to me, it's personnel. They have lost a lot of their good run defenders. They didn't replace them. And here they are in mid-November. They can't stop the run. And I don't know if there's a solution, to be honest, other than Greenlaw and Warner making all the tackles. They got to get more than just those 2 guys around the football. These safeties are pathetic against the run.
Pathetic.
Bad, really bad. I have not seen Gibson and Hufanga make plays in the box against the run. They fall off tackles. They miss tackles. The Niners have missed 32 tackles in the last 3 games. That's a ton of tackles missed. So how is this run D, other than Greenlaw getting healthy, how's this run D going to get it going?
I don't know. I don't want to do this, Larry, but we were on a show months ago, man. This is in the 5-0 era of the season, and it was hard for us to aggregate all of those numbers together to come up with the picture that you did, which is great work, by the way, Larry. Amazing work. But I talked about this when we played against Las Vegas, man, when we were in the summer, and that's why I had us going 9-8. And I said specifically, I got a problem with us being able to run the ball and stop the run. And I really had a problem with all of the mass exodus of depth from our defense that we had and what we brought in. I wasn't pleased with what we had, not at all, especially from you and your reports that you were giving throughout the summer. But what really sealed the deal for me was our first joint practices with Las Vegas. I don't deem Las Vegas to be a physical team whatsoever. But from what we were hearing, they were running all over us, and not just in the preseason game, but in the joint practices day after day. They were having a good day against our defense, and that worried me. And everybody was kind of parsing it off. I came on here later on during the 5-0 season, and I said, man, I'm afraid about our defense because of what I saw in preseason. And it was a huge roar, a good time Charlie roar of, preseason. Why does coach care about preseason? Preseason right. Doesn't matter at all. And if you look at that game, I just brought it up. In that game against the Raiders, they possessed the ball for 31 minutes and 37 seconds to our 28. All right. They rushed the ball for 120 yards off 35 carries. Okay. The back who was there at the time, if you remember, the back that was there at the time was Zahir White. He had an average day against us, but he was actually moving the ball. And Amir Abdullah had some good carries against us in that game. And when I saw that, and then I started seeing that we were struggling against Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh went 90 yards on us. And I understand that over 90 plus yards on us in that drive. And I understand that there were some personal fouls by the defense, I think specifically by Diamador Lenore, which kept that drive alive. But I just didn't see the physicality versus what the rest of the league was doing. For what it's worth, I do believe that Cleveland Ferrell is one of our best run-stopping defensive ends. I believe that Eric Armstead, quiet as kept, has been having kind of like one of the best seasons of his career, honestly, from what I've been seeing him do. But we do leave a lot to be desired with Javon Hargraves in the run game. He's not that good at it. Full stop. We don't have him a half of the season. He ain't a quarterback. He's a D lineman. Either you got one or you don't. All right.
And Baldy, I don't know if you caught this, but Baldy said in the last day or two that he obviously, being back there, studied Hargrave a ton last year. He said he doesn't look anything like the same guy as he saw last year in Philly.
No, he's just not playing inspired football whatsoever. And a lot of that is just lazy. I saw him during the Denver game when our defense finally got on the field against the Denver game, and he was sucking wind after one quarter. And I said to people anybody who would listen, his ass is out of shape, man. He got hips like a housewife. He out of shape. And ain't nobody want to listen. And now you're getting teams that are singling him out and understanding that in first and second down, this boy don't want to play no ball. He just want the money downs. And he, you know what I'm saying? So we're hoping that the emergence and the addition of Chase Young is actually going to help us in the run game. We're hoping that with Chase Young being over at the defensive end spot, I think he's exclusively going to be at that right end spot. I haven't seen him play anywhere else. So Nick more than often is going to travel a lot. We're going to be able to see Nick get a lot more freedom up and down the defensive line now that Chase is here. And I'm looking to see a little bit of a NASCAR situation with seeing what Randy Gregory, Chase Young, and Nick Bosa can all do on the field together, with possibly using Eric Armstead or Javon Hargraves as an anchor. As far as stopping the run is concerned, it's really interior. It's the interior. Those defensive tackles need to keep our linebackers free, and they're not doing a really good job of it. They're doing a lot of evading to trying to get off linebackers. Offensive linemen, they're getting up free on our linebackers, and I feel as though that we're going to have to, I don't know, are we going to have to get out of the wide nine? Maybe we have to cut it down a little bit to protect our linebackers, because for what we're seeing,
I'll say this, Coach, just from watching on the Binocs and then looking at the All-22, Cincinnati spread the Niners out, and there was a lot of grass there, man. There was a lot of grass to cover between those splits. And
we might have to choke it up.
Yeah, and let's be totally honest, Givens is a one-gap penetrator, Hargrave the same. Kinlaw doesn't come off blocks and make plays. Kalia Davis never gets on the field. So, Armstead's really their only interior player that can both get up the field with the rush and come off blocks against the run. Just it's asking, and he's 6'7". So I mean, it's just not. It's a tough deal. I mean, they missed DJ Jones in the worst way, and they're going to have to go find a tackle who can stop the run in the offseason.
We will never right that wrong. DJ Jones, and then you know what's so wild about it is that DJ Jones was the constellation for Solomon Thomas being cheeks.
Yeah,
and we feel like we lucked out by finding DJ, and then what do? We give up the very guy who was supposed to be the patch for the other number 2 overall pick that flopped on us. It's like, so what would you rather be doing? Paying Solomon Thomas money that we know he doesn't deserve, or paying DJ Jones his ceiling and understanding that, yes, he may be overpaid for where we charted him from, but based on what we were staring at with Solomon Thomas, it's a deal. It's a deal to keep him. I don't know, Larry.
I know. No, you're right. And by the way, for all the housewives in the audience, I like housewife hips. And honey, if you're watching upstairs, I like your hips. All right, you know, and maybe sometime later today, in between maybe a halftime of one of the college games, I'd like to take a look at those hips.
Larry is giving us so much content today.
I'm not going to let Coach run down housewife hips. Damn it. Damn it.
My man Larry said, keep the peace so you can get a piece.
Oh, my God. This is Saturday. I'm trying to get stuff done on a Saturday. I got a list. I got a list of things to do. I got to get the kids' haircuts. I got to bet on some college football, and I may have to get some loving in.
I may have to get some loving in.
I mean, I got an early Jacksonville Niner game tomorrow, so tomorrow's out. I'm working like a dog on this freaking channel, and on my one loving day, Coach is attacking housewives and their hips. I can't have it. I can't have it.
Fuck your man to the click you claim. West Side. Come on, Larry. Start off, Larry.
Oh, don't look at you're going Pac on me. I know my Pac. I know my Pac.
I know your Pac.
I know. I mean, you'd be surprised how much flavor I have on my Apple Music.
Too much sauce. You got it, Larry. You got too much sauce, dog.
I told Kinlaw a couple weeks ago. I said, man, what do you listen to before the game? He's like, man, I listen to a little Kodak Black. And I looked at him. I'm like, yeah, man, I got Transporting on my playlist. And he's looked at me, put his glasses down. Oh man. All right. Let's talk a little bit about this. I asked Shanahan a question.
Okay.
Earlier this week, and I'm going to share the screen here. And Shanny and I have a pretty good relationship because he knows I'm probably one of the guys that, when shit's really going down, he knows I'm in his corner where probably there's a lot of people that aren't. But I asked him, how is he going to inject more speed? He said his team was slow and tired. The bye week helps the tired, but what's going to help the slow? Is there any way you can inject speed? I asked him this question. Look at this little exchange.
Okay.
Wait a second. Hold on. I muted it. Hold on.
Fatigued.
There we go. Here we go.
Kyle, you mentioned how your team looked fatigued and slow after the Bengal game. Is slow an off-season type thing? Or is there any area on either side of the ball you can inject some speed before the offseason?
Do you have anything I can inject?
Danny Gray? I don't know.
I mean, that makes one person faster, but no, it's overall team speed, and it's not just one play. It's for an overall game. I think that happens to everyone through the season. I think it showed up more on our tape in Cincinnati than it had the other in a while, which was concerning. So I was glad for the break, but I also think the trip got to us a little bit. I mean, those are all reasons / excuses, which are the exact same thing to me. But yeah, our guys are a lot fresher right now. They look good to go. Hopefully we'll have a good week of practice, play the right way on Sunday, and keep it that way. We got 3 games in 12 days, which doesn't help. So that's a little bit different, but then you get 3 days off after that Thursday night game to kind of recover and get ready for the run.
So there you go. I should have followed up because I wasn't expecting him to throw it back in my lap that way. But I wouldn't ask questions unless I had answers, right? I mean, and I look at it like there's several spots they could inject speed. Just to name a few, they activated Robert Beal. Robert Beal, runs 4.4 off the edge. Robert Beal can go hunt quarterbacks faster than Cleveland Farrell can. There's speed right there. Jalen Graham has incredible instincts and is a magnet to the football. He essentially is quite a bit faster than Oren Burks or Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. That's number 2. Jair Brown at safety, I think potentially could play faster than Gibson or Hufanga. That's number 3. Samuel Womack, Darrell Luter Jr. I think both these guys have potentially, better speed than Isaiah Oliver. That's number 4. Jordan Mason flexing out Christian McCaffrey, putting Mason on the field and using McCaffrey instead of Juwan. To me, McCaffrey's faster than Juwan. That's adding speed. Braden Willis has got pretty good speed. I'd like to see maybe him, Ronnie Bell, on a few. I mean, he's not known as a burner, and he's not really a burner. But Ronnie Bell, Ray McLeod instead of Juwan might be able to inject some speed. There are areas where you can inject some youth and some speed. I suggested Danny Gray because, Coach, as we all know, Danny Gray flies. And
he's the fastest dude on the team.
Yeah, fastest guy on the team, one of the fastest guys in the league. They haven't been able to get him on the field. He's got injury problems. I don't know if he's close to returning or not. But that was Kyle was like, hey, he's talking about team speed. Okay, so you have a bye week. You're fresh. You played 13 straight weeks of football and you get a bye week. Okay, but you're going to have to play 13 more straight weeks of football to win the Super Bowl. So, I mean, now off of one bye week, everybody's going to get fresher and faster.
It don't work that way.
He didn't want to go there and answer that question, but there are options if you lean on the youth on your roster. But he didn't want to acknowledge that and kind of just threw it back like, hey, do you got an idea? I'm talking about overall team speed. And I'll say this, from being at practice every day for the last month and then being at practice this week, they do look fresher and faster this week. I thought Debo did. I thought Ayuk did. I thought a number of guys were flying around at practice, and they look quite a bit livelier than they did going into the bye week. So maybe they were more slow or more tired than slow. But what do you think? I mean, the one that I really want to see is Jalen Graham, because Jalen Graham plays very fast, and they're not stopping the run at all. And what they really are struggling with is they can't get their linebackers around the football. And this is a guy that I'm pretty convinced would be around the football if he played. Is there any way that you see? What do you think? If you could inject speed here, how would you do it?
I'd stop playing around with the space on the field. You can't have speed on the field if you're always putting people in. You're like Kyle's scheme. What he likes to do is he likes to create space in order for men to get open, right? But when you're creating space, you're also kind of condensing other sides of the field, right? And offensively, I feel as though that we don't have necessarily the right balance of physicality with the speed that we have. So one of the things that Kyle likes to do with physicality is he likes to get a lot of the strongest players on his team on the weakest part areas of the field. He likes to get, what does that look like? That's outside zone. That's tunnel and bubble screens. That's slip screens with getting guys out on the edge quick. That's truck and guard tackle pulls. And with that, Kyle likes to get guys on the outside. He likes to get cracking. He likes to get crack looking blocks and plays. Actions. Sorry. He likes to get crack actions off of plays to be able to play with leverage and blocking. And all of that is cool. But what you also do when you do that is that you're not manipulating space the right way, right? We don't really do anything inside of the hashes, right? The only thing that we do inside the hashes as an offense is throw there. But we don't really run inside of the hashes at all, right? And that's where putting JP Mason on the field tightens your box, You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It tightens your box and it brings guys down. It brings guys down into the box where guess what? Now your spaces from your last Indian or most dangerous man to the sideline is a lot wider because now you have to come down into the box to actually account for JP Mason. Now the splits that you have on your offensive line need to be cut down, and you need to actually have bigger flats. So there's ways that you can manipulate the space on the field with not necessarily the fastest players, but players that command more attention. They command the defense in the box to stay stale, to stay there. All right. Where now when we get Deebo Samuel on the screen, we're not having people flow over to him like a bat out of hell because they don't trust our inside run game. That's why a lot of these defense have a lot of flow against us because they just don't trust certain things that they can get bit in the ass with cutting back up the field and going in between the tackles, with running duo and running gap scheme and being able to have a guard that pulls that can actually scare an in-man defender. Like we don't have that in our offense. And a lot of times defenses are being coached up that way. When they see the backside, when they see us going on outside zone and there's an opportunity for us to get cut on the backside to create that natural cut lane, guys are running right past that shit. They're just chasing the runner. They know we don't have the offensive lineman to create that lane, right? So really, the reason why we look slow is because we're doing too much running. And not running from the sense of running the ball, but we're running away from everybody. We're not necessarily keeping the defense honest. That's why defenses are starting to look fast against us. That's why they can flow against us because they're cheating. They're not being kept honest. And that's one of the biggest things that's one of the biggest reasons why you want somebody like JP Mason on the field, because you have to respect the box when he's in there or you're going to get ran on all day. And even with our offensive line not being as strong, as you know, they're just not strong. Not even as strong. They're just not strong. With our offensive line not being strong, we need to be able to cut down those splits and put some double team blocks together and let those boys go fight unfair. That's the beauty about offensive line. You're never supposed to be in a fair fight. We're offensive linemen. We're supposed to beat up on people. We double team. That's what we do. Right. So I have to coach that up when I coach offensive line kids all the time when I was younger, is that, hey, don't feel afraid to beat up on him with your friend. That's what we do. We don't fight fair on the offensive line. And I feel like with our offensive line, you're going to start seeing a lot of teams, and I've said this before, we've seen it for 3 weeks. Niners are not going to see anything but 5-man fronts. You'd be a fool to be a defensive coordinator and not single these guys out one by one with the 5-man front, because that's the kryptonite of what we do. But if you're going to have a 5-man front, the last thing you do is go lateral. You go vertical. You go straight at them, right? You tighten that box down. That's going to leave a lot of open field on the flats, a lot of time. It's a lot of space. And then that's when Ray looks a little bit faster all of a sudden. Deebo seems to be getting out of the arms reach of tacklers all of a sudden. It's because the defense is actually staying home, right? When you see a defense moving at like neck-breaking speed against our offense and we look really slow, it's not necessarily because we're just, not athletic enough to get around them. It's that schematically they understand that there's just things that we can't do. So they just get to the point of attack.
Niners _worldwide says, I like a tight box. Yes.
Oh my God. This show has been wild.
Niners _worldwide says, I like a tight box with housewife hips. Morning.
Morning.
Wow. All right. Some great comments there. Phenomenal stuff, guys. All right. Let me ask you about Hufanga and Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting anything done? Because Hufanga, was so good at attacking the mesh point in the run game last year. This year, he just doesn't seem like they're either not utilizing him the same way, or he's not a force against the run. Neither of these guys look like they're that great in coverage against the pass. I mean, I know they wanted guys with ball skills, because after Tart dropped the pick against the Rams, and Jimmy Ward has no picks, that they were like, we got to have safeties with ball skills. Okay, but you traded out two guys who were almost like extra linebackers for guys who have ball skills, and now you're getting run on. And it's like, you know what? If teams can run on you left and right, they don't need to get to third and long and put the ball up down the field. I mean, I'd rather have Gibson and Afonga as deep center fielders against passes than Tart or Jimmy Ward, but I'd much rather have Jimmy Ward and Tart against the run. And right now, the Niners aren't stopping the run. So how do you evaluate the safeties?
The talent is showing through. I mean, usually our defense, not even our defense is made from the inside out, meaning that our front seven, they're the tip of the spear. That's who we cater to, and they make everybody else right. With our safety play, I'll take what they're giving me in the pass game. You know, it is what it is. Either you're going to get beat or you're going to do well. But they're not doing well in the run game. Gibson and Huff, they're just not tackling. They're really treating themselves as if they're the last line of defense. They're really coming in trying to like chip tackle, running into ball carriers with the shoulder, trying to chip legs, really just trying to be economic. Really, it's kind of annoying, but I see guys play like this, and you can tell that they're doing like bare minimum. It's like the quiet quitting of football. Like these guys are coming out there saying, well, I know that fourth quarter, I'm really going to have to take a hit. It's like these guys, honestly, the way I see them playing is they're almost charting out how many tough hits they're going to take for the day. Like they're making the decision. Like, okay, this guy can get on the ground if I just nudge him. This guy can get on the ground if I just sweep his leg out. This guy can get on the ground if I just wait till Fred comes and hit him. And then you can literally see their thought process on getting guys to the ground, what they have to do. Almost to the point where when you see them get alone with the tackler, that's when they immediately try to get him to the ground as fast as possible by picking up his leg and probably trying to dip him into the ground. But really, nobody's just coming in with form fitting. The greatest thing about a defense that tackles is that everybody is making the tackle like they are the only one that has to get him to the ground. That's when you see a swarm, where you see literally every defender is going after the ball carrier as if I'm the only one here, and if he doesn't get on the ground by me, he's going to score. But that's not how we gang tackle. That's not how we get to, especially by our safeties. That's why I'm bringing this up. You can see the brother-in-law agreement that they're making in their mind, saying, well, Dre just hit him. Fred's got his leg. Let me just nudge him and get him on the ground. Or Nick's got him. Eric Armstead has his arm. Let me just run into his chest and see if he'll fall on the ground. They're literally playing football this way. And I know
where's that hitting? Where's that swagger? Yeah. Where's that physicality? I mean, the Niners paid, Larry. Yeah, I mean, the Niners opponents last year lost every game the following week because they beat teams down. They're not beating teams down. They've lost their swagger. They've lost their mojo. They don't seem like they're not nearly as intimidating a defense as they used to be. There's no doubt about that.
Not at all. And they deserve it. I mean, they earned being one of the best defenses in the league, and they earned being one of the most fraudulent defenses in the league. It's just the facts, right? And if you think about this is one thing that's so funny about football, man. And guys and girls do it too. It's almost kind of like the duff of like the cute girl group that you go out with. It's like they all got that warlock of a friend who's just and she's walking around with her bodysuit on, and it's just like, who gave you the confidence?
Warlock.
Who do you think you are? You know what I'm saying? And honestly, the reason why I'm bringing that up is that I know you just saw it on Twitter. I've been reading it, but Gip was talking about when you have the best players in the world, you just got to be able to put them in the right position, and ultimately it's up to us to believe what you're doing, and we have to go make the plays. Excuse me, sir. We picked you up off the street. The rest of the guys on the defense are the best in the world. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, we just got you. So what are you talking about? You start to understand that even the way these guys are talking on the defense, they're not even approaching this with the fact that they got to go out there and earn their check every game. They feel entitled, right? A guy that we picked up off the street, that we lost our real safeties, right? The guy who we picked up off of his couch called himself one of the best guys in the world.
It's an embarrassing comment. You know why? You weren't in the stadium last week, but when the Bengals were there, it was alumni weekend. They were showing at the timeouts highlights of old Niners, the old Niner games. Yeah. I'm watching Hufanga and Gibson, barely make any impact at all. It's now a timeout. I'm looking up at the scoreboard. They do like a 90-second video of the Hawk, Deshaun Goldson, and Dante Whitner. And I'm like, where the fuck are those guys? I mean, Jesus, look at that. I mean, I felt like saying yelling down on a loudspeaker to the safeties, hey, guys, you want to look at a hit? Look at the scoreboard. Those guys were detonating on people left and right. Ronnie Lott was in the house last week. And these guys are all this grab and drag. And, man. It's like, and I realize the game's changed a little bit, but hit somebody. Please, somebody hit somebody. And if I watch the Niners safeties used to be hitters. Now it's like, who's going to hit? I mean, Hufanga will come up with a couple big hits. Gibson had that one hit that was a penalty. But I mean, these guys have got to bring the hat a little bit more. They got to bring some thunder and some oomph in some of these
balls. Hits. Yeah,
I want to see some guys go to the ground. I mean, it's Greenlaw is now their lone hitter. They had Greenlaw, they had Aziz, they had Jimmy Ward, they had Tart, they had Ebukam, they had Emmanuel Mosley. They had some guys, Amenahue. They had guys who would just absolutely starch you. Now it's Greenlaw and the tacklettes.
You know who I miss? You know who I miss?
Who's that?
Hassan Ridgeway.
Yeah, he's done for the year now. But yeah.
Hassan Ridgeway.
Yeah, another guy, another good run defender.
Our guys. Those were our run defender guys that came in and handled business. Like there were. Think about this. For those of us who are just, solely looking at the defense, right? I just want us to understand what we've missed. All right. There were instances last year where we had waves of talent on our defensive line.
Right.
There were times during the season where our entire starting defensive line was on the sidelines watching our reserve defensive line whoop ass. That is rare.
Right.
That is something right that now. You hold on. It's gone. You hold on to that. You don't trade that type of depth for one guy that's a specialty player on one down. You don't do that. You don't do that. And the players
if you do that, coach, go make sure that you invest in some new guys in the draft. Don't start drafting kickers. You're drafting kickers in the third round like you have no needs. You just got rid of all your front seven depth for Javon Hargrave. You should have replaced some of that front seven depth in the draft and went with Robbie Gould. Instead, you're using third round picks on freaking kickers.
Yeah, I mean, and even to the point where it's been known that Kyle even made a joke about they finally got us a kicker because I didn't want to draft a running back. How many running backs are we going to throw away in the third round?
They're getting zero. By the way, zero out of this draft. Zero.
I mean, the kicker, notwithstanding, but that's it.
I mean, the kicker who's missed a game-winning kick.
Yeah, they're not getting anything.
They've lost one game because of the kicker already, and they're getting nothing. They're redshirting their entire draft.
Listen, Larry,
it's frustrating.
It is frustrating. We've made moves. Okay, I got the prognosis of cancer in August. Okay, I've been preparing for this all year. So it's not, I didn't come into this season with tassels on and pom-poms. I kind of felt that we weren't the team who I've grown to love. I've always loved this team, but the identity of who we were is something that was very special over the past 4 to 5 years. And we're just not that team.
Right.
And for me, you understand that the reason why you have a culture is not because of the 22 guys that you put on the field on offensive and defense, but you have a culture because the smallest guy is working his ass off to get on the field, right? There's not that your backup is trying to fight, right? While we were proving to everybody that we were the most physical team in the league, Aziz wasn't even playing. He was lifting, sleeping on Coach Holland's couch, getting cultivated. That's culture, right? When we were sitting back whooping everybody's ass as a football team, Aaron Banks was in the weight room getting better. That's culture, right? You don't get rid of your depth pieces. You don't get rid of your staunch contributors, all right, who are not starters, but they contribute just to go get a guy. Like signing a guy to get over the hump is just as bad as a team that sucks, that pays for their number one free agent. You know what the move that we did with signing not Hassan Ridgeway, but
Javon
Hargraves. That move was emblematic of like the Skins going to get Bruce Smith or going to get Deion Sanders. Remember that
those
year
guys were a little bit more long in the tooth. But I hear you.
You see what I'm saying? Or the Skins going to go get
it's not NBA basketball. It's not you're going
to get
one guy.
Albert Hainsworth.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
It's not like a one guy game.
One guy's not going to do it. That's my point. One guy isn't going to do. If he ain't a quarterback, one guy isn't going to.
I'll tell you the most frustrating part to me is not. It's one thing if you go in the draft and you whiff. They didn't whiff. They're just not playing any of these guys. Ronnie Bell, they hit on him. Braden Willis, they hit on him. Jalen Graham, they hit on him. Those guys were all 7th-round picks. Those are their 3 7th-round picks. They hit on all of them, and not a single guy can get on the field. Jair Brown, they hit on him. He's a good player. He can't get on the field. It's like it's frustrating as hell. Jordan Mason, is he a bum? No, he's good, but he can't get on the field. So it's like if you can't get on the field, you can't make an impact. If you can't make an impact, you can't help your team win. They're leaning on too few guys. They're depleted depth-wise on all 3 levels of their defense. And then they let guys go that they didn't have to let Jimmy Ward go. It was a personal deal. He didn't make any real money. They could have paid him what the Texans are paying him. They just didn't want him because him and Shanahan, he didn't want to be here, and him and Shanahan got into this little battle. But I mean, they let too many good players walk, and they didn't replace.
We could have paid Aziz. Right.
I mean, they should have paid Aziz.
We should have paid him.
A tackling machine who loved to be here. He was one of the reasons this team had swagger on D, and instead, no, gone. And you know, look, now he's making 15 tackles a week.
What's crazy is that, and this is what's wild, is because we've seen it done before. Remember Brandon Ayuk's rookie year, where because we got hurt so much during that year, he basically got given everything. All of the now routes, all of the screens, all of the perfect routes that he liked to run. I mean, we basically catered the offense to him, and he had a great year because everybody was hurt. He was given all of these different avenues inside of the offense, where we thought that Brandon Ayuk was he's gonna basically take off. And then we had a real training camp. Remember? Because Brandon Ayuk didn't go through a traditional training camp his rookie year. Then his next year, what happened? Brandon Ayuk is in the doghouse. Everybody's sitting here wondering why Brandon Ayuk is being underutilized. He's barely playing. He's not getting any type of looks. He's not getting any type of reps. What happened to all of the plays for Brandon Ayuk that were being ran? That was what Kyle was running previously during Brandon Ayuk's rookie year, when he had to run that stuff because there was nobody else in the offense to do it. Kyle can do it. He can do it. It's all about what he wants done and who he wants it done from in this offense. So really, this is really on Kyle as far as like getting better production out of the team and the offense, because Kyle has shown that when the rubber meets the road, he will play who needs to play without him. If it's up to Kyle being embarrassed, he's going to play the right guy. He won't be embarrassed. That's his number one thing. He won't be embarrassed. So we'll see.
Well, they've lost 3 in a row. I don't know if it gets much more embarrassing than that, but we'll see. If they lose to Jacksonville, I don't know that anybody's ever won a Super Bowl after losing 4 in a row. Let me hit some supers and we'll bolt for the door here. Gizmo Maltese says, why not old WC short passes to the running back as a running game? You talking about Wildcat?
Wildcat. I don't think so.
Gizmo, we appreciate that one. Gray Fox says, I'm sick of hearing how great the Jags are. Look, they haven't had an impressive win. Buffalo, maybe. They haven't faced an offense like ours. We will come out strong and show the NFL we're back. All right, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. The game's tomorrow. Stephen Draper, what about Ilm Manning? I love
That's
Ilm
a
Manning.
great question.
Yeah, I'd like to see Ilm Manning.
No,
Yeah,
well, we lost Il Manning and got him back, didn't we?
Yeah, and he's practicing and he looks healthy. I'll take my chances with Ilm Manning. I like him. I think that was a real good reacquisition. Stephen Draper, Wilkes bad against the run every team he's coached. Didn't know that, but I'd have to look that up. That might be worth doing a video on this week.
Yeah.
I'd have to look that up. Niners _worldwide. Larry, can we get a bulky impression?
Let's go, Larry.
The one thing that really sucks about this show with the coach is the coach, when Larry's trying to get down, is ripping housewife hips. I tell you, I've always said that you got to have a tight box. On a Saturday when you're watching college ball, you got to have housewife hips. And preferably a torn ACL in there would be nice.
Gammon Brown says, thank you for those who gave their lives. That's right. Veterans Day yesterday. And absolutely. My father was in the Army, was no longer with us. He was a JAG Corps attorney. He didn't give his life for his country, but he gave his life to the armed forces. And I'm all about that. All about those people. I went to Army Navy one time. I'll say this, Coach. I don't know if you're out in that part of the country. I went to Army Navy at the link maybe a decade ago. And I would encourage anybody, if you're going to make a bucket list on your, sports, people say, hey, I want to go to a Kentucky Derby. Hey, I want to go to a Final Four. Hey, I want to go to the Super Bowl. Hey, I want to go to spring training. Hey, I want to go to a football training camp. Hey, I want to go to a, whatever it is, premier boxing event. They're all great. And I've been to almost all of them. Go to Army Navy. Go to Army Navy and sit there as the middies and the cadets, and they do their walk around the field, and you can see the people that are defending this nation are children. They're literally kids. They're so young, and they deserve our respect. They deserve our admiration. So thank you to everybody who has devoted their life to defending this nation.
I was out on that side of the country too, man. I went to Valley Forge military, so we went to all of the Navy Army games at the link. So we went to the ones where those games are bitter cold, but they're a good time, boy. The Corps of Cadets is something to see. They're a sight to see.
It's an event that's unlike any other. It's amazing. If I would say to you, if anybody could go watch a cool documentary as well, HBO did this amazing documentary on the 1963 Army Navy game, which was happened after the assassination of JFK, and just how what an emotional moment that was. And obviously JFK was a big supporter of the Army Navy game as an officer in his own right. Stephen Draper said Huff is not firing at the mesh point. Yeah, I see the same thing. One last one here I want to get before we jet. Coach, if you got a minute, we'll finish up on this one. This is Alex Smith, and he was talking about Purdy this week. And he makes a really good point, I think. Let's hear this. Hold on. Wait. The problem is wait. Hold on, Alex. And why I like this is because Alex lived it, right? He was the first pick in the draft. There were expectations. He wasn't good initially and then became great. Almost won a Super Bowl. But here's Alex talking this week on Sirius XM.
The talk of Brock Purdy being the problem is absolutely nonsense. As bad as he's been in the last 3 weeks, which again, this is a guy that didn't throw an interception the first 5 weeks. Yes, he's thrown 5 in the last 3 weeks. And I know there's some of them been questionable and the concussion. There's been some goofy things. He's still second in the NFL in QBR. And more importantly, when you turn on the tape, this guy routinely makes ridiculous plays in the passing game look routine. Exactly that. Like he does it week in and week out. There are multiple pass plays every single week that you look at that are like, man, this guy is a 6-year, 7-year veteran. Like he's playing at that level. And I think sometimes we unfairly compare him to those guys. We unfairly compare him to where Dak Prescott is and Jalen Hurts and some of these guys that he's going to have to play in the NFC. We don't forget, listen, what has he played? 13 games, right? Like his real comparisons are Pickett, Ritter, and Matt Corral and Sam Howell. Like these are the guys that he got drafted with that were drafted ahead of him, and he is light years ahead of them. He is not the problem. They're going to get Debo back. They're hopefully going to get Trent Williams back. Like that's going to help. And for me, far more question marks about this defense, but I still think they're going to get figured out. They're too good. I love that they added Chase Young here to kind of solidify that defensive front. I think he's going to add to it. I think they're going to get it dialed in. Problem is they've kind of dug themselves a little hole, certainly to try to go get that bye, the number 1 seed in the bye. I mean, the Eagles obviously a couple of games out in front, and that's obviously such a big advantage come January. The talk of Brock.
Oh, wait. So there we go. A little bit of Alex Smith. He does make, first of all, he mentioned Chase Young, which I failed to mention, but we talked a lot about Chase Young last week on the show because of the trade. But Chase Young, we get to see him tomorrow. Hopefully he makes a big impact. And that's one of the things in the Niner reload. Chase Young is part of that reload. But I think the point that I think is a good point is just that, it hasn't been perfect for Purdy for sure. And God knows he needs to take better care of the football. But I will say this. I like the fact that this kid walked into that locker room after that Bengal game. And despite the fact that the defense got gashed, he went in front of the guys and said, hey guys, I wasn't good. I turned it over. I need to be better. This is on me. And I asked Greenlaw about it this week, and he's like, yeah, he didn't need to. He goes, it wasn't on him, and he didn't need to make that speech, but he's ascending to a leadership role. But I think that instead of us focusing on, he's not Mahomes, he's not this guy, he's not that, those guys are freaking great. He's way better than those quarterbacks that Alex named. And we just need to kind of put it in perspective. We want him, we're judging him against franchise guys because we're hungry for a franchise guy here. We wanted Trey to be that guy. And now they told us it's not Trey, it's Brock. So now we all want Brock to be that franchise guy. And he might be that guy in time. He might not. But I think it is fair to at least remember that he's better than all those other guys that he just named there. And this is probably all part of the maturation process. If it continues where he's throwing 2-3 picks every week, then guess what? He's not going to be the guy. He's going to have to graduate beyond that and take better care of the football. Nobody would argue that. Nobody would argue that that's not the case. But I just think perspective. What I liked with Alex there was just the perspective that, hey, look, he's better than a lot of these guys that were drafted in and around him. Let's start really appreciating what he actually is and compared to the real guys he should be compared to. And let's see if he can, take better care of the football and improve. And, I always say it with my kids. It's like kids have to know what the line is. And a lot of times they'll vault over the line and make mistakes. And then you got to rein them back in. It's part of the whole maturation process. Playing quarterback is kind of the same thing in the NFL. You can't sit there and be, I hate to say it like Alex Smith, but you can't just be like, I'm never going to take any chances. You have to take some chances, but you have to balance that with patience and being smart with the football. And until you push the envelope, you don't know how much you got there. And now it's about, can you adjust? He pushed the envelope. He's made some bad plays in the desire to make a play. He's made some negative plays. Can he learn from that? Is he going to learn from that and rein it back in and play cleaner football and take better care of the football? Or is the league, quote unquote, on to him and he's going to continue 2-3 turnovers a game and make the Niners go into the offseason going, we need our quarterback of the future, and we don't have him. To me, that's also a big part of the narrative the rest of the year. Give me your thoughts on it.
Well, there's a difference between expectation versus results. What you expect from Brock Purdy is your own business. What type of emotional tie you have to him, what your own personal history is with football versus how you view this kid and how you vicariously want to support or live through him. That's a whole nother conversation. So I'm glad that we've been able to finally get to a conversation where we're comparing Brock Purdy with requisite quarterbacks. Okay. Now, if you want to compare him with requisite quarterbacks, then the jury is still out on Brock Purdy, because everybody who you've named about Brock Purdy that you would compare him to, the jury is still out on them. None of those quarterbacks are by far a franchise guy or the future of any of their franchises. They'd like to be. There's a trajectory that says that their ball club is around them and they hope to be, but they're definitely still aggregating data and figuring out whether or not if this quarterback is somebody that we want to, one, lynch ourselves to for the long haul, two, pay that type of money. Because once you pay a franchise quarterback, then that means that everybody else falls behind, right? You can't necessarily pay a Nick Bosa $34 million a year when you have the real deal, okay? So if you want to talk about what Brock is literally now, while the batter is still wet and the turkey is halfway done, then you're not going to get a finished product, right? Because really what Alex is trying to say is give him a chance. We've been trying to give him a chance. We just don't want to. We just are glad that it took him 3 games to lose before we finally started realizing that mentioning Brock Purdy with the top 10 quarterbacks in the league is a little bit disingenuous. It's dishonest, right?
Well, it doesn't seem fair either.
Now it doesn't seem fair. It seemed like certain players, including yourself, people, including yourself, were grandstanding when he was 5-0, and we were trying to tell.
I don't think I was grandstanding. I think I was just enthusiastic about what we were seeing with Brock Purdy, and at that point, he was putting up MVP-like numbers. So you at least had to discuss it, because he was putting up MVP-like numbers 5 weeks in. That's why that discussion.
Discussing it and making decrees are 2 totally different things. Okay. Saying that the kid is top 10 and saying that, hey man, he's doing pretty good are 2 totally different things. But what I will say is that if you get into Hannibal, stop. My dog is trying to steal things on the ground because he knows I'm busy. So if my biggest deal is that if you want to judge him now, then everything matters, including the picks, including all of the good passes and the great processing that he's doing. I feel like I said this last show. I feel like there's a lot of elements of Brock's maturation process that we're going to bear out. We're going to be able to see what he can do in keeping himself healthy in the league. We're going to see what he can do to be able to be better with the requisite arm talent that he has. And then we're also going to see what Kyle can do with him. I brought this up the last show where I feel as though that there's a lot of times that we've been seeing that this is what has won me over as Brock as a starter in the league, is that he's been saving us, quite frankly. Kyle has not been calling good games.
They can't run. They haven't been able to run the ball.
Right.
So he's running for his life out there.
Right. So what I'm saying is that what Brock has shown thus far is that it's promising. He is a starter. Now, is Brock the guy? We don't know, because all of it counts. Include the 3 quarters that he has good versus the picks and the turnovers and the indecisiveness that we see in the 4th quarter. That all counts. All right. And it's something that we have to bear out to see if he can overcome it or push past it. But you can't tab a quarterback and say that he's the guy, and 60% of the time he works all of the time. I mean, he's not Sex Panther. You know what I'm saying? It's like either you got a guy that's good or he's not, right? So for those of you people that want to sit back and talk about Brock's first 3 quarters versus the last quarter, that's like a guy saying, yeah, I don't cheat on my wife until I do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm the most faithful guy in the world. Just don't give me a couple of drinks. I may do some shit. It's like, then you're not faithful. Okay. It's like, I'm not a thief, but from time to time, I like to walk past the self-checkout line. You're a thief. Okay, so you can't look at, there are no small picks, there are no big picks, there are no not your fault picks. This is the quarterback this is the quarterback position. Okay, there are no free rides. So what Brock has shown at this position of his career is promising. I can say with full confidence that I believe that Brock is a starter in the NFL. He is a starter. Now we need to see if he can be able to carry a team, because what we're looking at are two different conversations. One is the conversation of the maturation process of a quarterback who's trying to become a franchise quarterback with the team. But then there's a whole other conversation about the team where they keep gaslighting and lying to us and telling us that Brock doesn't have to do anything. All he has to do is just get the ball out to the right playmakers. We know that's the farthest thing from the truth. Okay, so that's the delta that you're going to have to cross, right? In your mind as a fan, not you personally, but at you as a fan. Are we looking at Brock for what he is as a pure passer, as a quarterback in the league and what he can do? Or are we looking at Brock for what this team says he is, right? Because a guy who's been labeled the real deal doesn't have to stand up and apologize about the picks that he made in the game, right? He feels that in the room. Okay, that's why he stood up and said what he had to say. Like George Kittle saying, "Oh, Brock, you don't want to throw any more picks." Like, bro, I don't trust this team. I don't trust this team. And the only way that we're going to be able to have one honest broker is if Brock is who everybody thinks he is. If Brock comes out and becomes a franchise quarterback, then Kyle automatically takes the back seat. We'll keep the quarterback over the coach, right? If Brock comes out and does what he's supposed to do, then the scheme, this system that we look at, all of that shit's out the window. It's about what Brock wants. This is the NFL, right? So that's what I want. I want the real quarterback of our team to get the hell off the field, and that's Kyle Shanahan. He needs to get out of the way so we can have a team that's ran traditionally.
They just got to, people just have to remember that it's a process. All these things are a process. And, Kyle saying he's the real deal was a way of him pushing back on the people saying that he wasn't, that he was just fool's gold and he was just beginner's luck and this and that. Kyle, I really think, believes that Brock is the real deal. It's funny too. Everybody has their own barometer and their own measuring stick. Always drip. Brock Purdy ain't no Joe Montana, though. I'll say that. Yeah, I don't know that anybody was saying that he was Joe Montana. And Mitchell and Ness. I remember Grant's face when Larry was saying he would take Brock over Montana. No, you don't, because Larry never said that. And Nick A says, Larry, just curious, why didn't you ask Kyle about Jordan Mason at the presser this week? It's been on your mind, and the fan base would really like to know why on earth is Mitchell getting his touches. You know what? I really wanted to ask that question, but I really wanted to also get his thoughts on a couple other things. And I want to see their adjustments coming out of the bye week. And I got to think that Mason playing is going to be one of the adjustments. So I gave it one more week, but that's coming. That question's coming for sure. And it's coming from me to him for sure. Three last supers. Isaac Hernandez. Thanks, Larry and Coach. Really value your takes. God bless and go Niners. Y'all make being a Niner fan in Indiana easier. Hometown is San Rafael, California. All right, Isaac. Hey, I'm glad we're bringing you a little closer to home. I appreciate you. Bazzy Mian says, so why are people saying Jalen Hurts is elite again when he's had only one great year on a stacked team with the best O-line and tons of weapons? Well, I mean, you say people. That's
I'm so glad you said it.
Quoting
like that,
people.
Larry.
I mean, people.
Who are people exactly? Like people saying that
people,
Jalen Hurts is elite is like, I don't know.
People?
It's like
people are people. Yeah, I always quote people. Joseph Stockbridge says, "What would it take for Kyle to take more ownership for his side of the ball being so anemic?" That's a great one. That's a great one. Kyle is not great at that. That is his flaw. I really believe that is his flaw. Nick A says, Larry, on a previous stream, you said you'd ask Kyle about the lack of Mason touches. Why didn't you ask? It baffles me that Mitchell gets more touches. Yeah, it's coming. It's coming for sure. I wanted to ask him this week about when I watched Jacksonville. I wanted to ask him about their defense because I think this is one of the best defenses that they've gone against. And so then I felt like I had to ask him the question about my team looked tired and slow. And we all know that they got fresher coming out of the bye, but I really thought there were some options to inject some speed into the mix. And I was hoping that I could get him to give us kind of a newsworthy item by asking him about where can you add speed. And instead he kind of threw it back on me and just kind of, sloughed it off. So believe me, the Mason question is definitely coming. And Lawless Light says, does Kyle have a plug and play offense? No. I mean, I would say no. It's very much a complicated deal. Look at how long it took Matt Ryan to master it. Matt Ryan in year 1 was good. Matt Ryan in year 2 won the MVP. And
but you know what also it took too?
It's very complex. You get shifts and motions, and I think that's why Braden Willis can't get on the field, Coach, is that I think the tight end spot is so complex with all the stuff they ask of the tight end that I don't think they feel like he can do it yet. And so he's
but Larry,
he's not getting any plays.
Larry, that's annoying, man. That's annoying because like I know that the best coaches know how to simplify it. If it's too complicated, the worst thing that a kid can say to a coach is, I want to play it, man. I just don't get this shit. It's too much. Like the mark of a teacher isn't to be able to put out the same curriculum every year in and year out, and just whoever passes and fails, is that it? No, you got to rework the lesson plan. You got to understand that you got kinetic learners, you got visual learners, you got audio learners. Some of the learners, you got all three. Some of the guys, you're going to have to teach it. Some of the guys, you're going to have to show it. Some of the guys, you're going to have to go out and actually apply it. Some of the guys, you're going to have to put him next to a guy that you want him to do, and through osmosis, like, he'll get it. There's so many ways. It's not just learn the playbook. And that's my problem. I feel like there's too much of this offense that's just it leads the way too much. Where
the only thing is the 49ers do, if you look at the numbers on since Kyle's been here, they lead the universe every year in pre-snap shifts and motions. And they do it so they can isolate guys and figure out coverages and isolate guys, try to get one-on-ones. And they're trying to do it for strategic purposes. And when it works, it's like, hey, it looks genius, right? Hey, you moved a guy across the formation. You realized what formation or what coverage they were playing. You isolated the player in space, and you got a huge gainer out of it. But it also puts an onus on the guys who are doing a lot of the shifting to understand what they're doing. And it's not as simple. I mean, playing tight end in this offense is not quite as simple as playing tight ends in some other offenses. But you're right. I mean, ultimately, you got to it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have to get your best players on the field. I mean, it really, to me, if there's one annoying aspect of this season to me, it's that Jair Brown can play, Jalen Graham can play, Braden Willis can play, Ronnie Bell can play. None of those guys have played at all for the most part. Ronnie Bell, I guess, played a little bit. But basically, Jair Brown from scrimmage is a rumor. D. Winters, Jalen Graham, never. They can't even get activated. Braden Willis, non-factor. And he's got, Dwelly and Warner in front of him. Ronnie Bell, one game he's gotten in, basically. Everything. I'd like to see them utilize a little bit more of their youth going forward, because I think that they've lost depth. We've already talked about it. They lost a lot of depth when they went for Hargrave. And then they drafted a bunch of guys, but then this was a year where they needed some of their draft picks to kind of hit the field and contribute, and they're getting nothing out of their draft choices. So that to me has been very, very frustrating to watch. Yeah. Coach, what do you got planned for the rest of your Saturday? Is there a college game you're honing in on?
Bama and Kentucky, man. They
going right now, right?
Yeah, they disrespected my Bama boys, man. We don't beat LSU. They still kept us at 8. We're knocking on the door, man. I mean, come on, give old Saint Nick a nod, So I got to see, but, we got to see Georgia. We got a crash collision course going for the SEC title game.
By the way, if you are a 49er fan and you're looking ahead to the draft, and I know there are Niner fans that are looking ahead to the draft. I did a deep dive this week.
Say his name. They're Latham. That's my guy.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was just about to talk about J.C. Latham. He wears number 65. He's the offensive tackle for Alabama. He was a 5-star high school recruit. We're talking about 6'6", 335. He plays right tackle, super flexible, super quick, great feet, strong punch, high first-round pick. Niners are not going to be able to get him unless they trade up for him.
There's a lot of tackles in this year's draft, though. This is rare.
I know.
The guys are still looking at us. We got this year's draft is one of the heaviest corner offensive line drafts of all time.
But it says Bama's on the tube. Go watch this kid 65. I think there's a chance. Now, Grant's been talking about it all week, trading Brandon Ayuk. We didn't get into it in the stream. But there's Dan Graziano from ESPN wrote the article last week. Will the Niners trade Ayuk? And I don't know if they will, but it's hard to imagine that they're going to pay Ayuk $20 million, which is what he's going to get, and Debo $20 million when they're a run-first team. So we'll see. But Grant's suggesting the Niners trade Ayuk. I'll say this. I don't love the idea of trading Ayuk because I think Ayuk's their best weapon in a lot of ways. But if you did trade Ayuk and you wound up with a first-round pick and you could trade your late first-round pick and whatever pick you get for Ayuk, and you could get into the top 15 picks, J.C. Latham, the offensive tackle from Bama, would be my pick. And I love Talisi Fuaga from Oregon State. I love Amarius Mims from Georgia. Alt from Notre Dame is tremendous. Obviously, the Penn State kid's amazing. But J.C. Latham is just a freaking monster. And if you could add one piece to the Niner offense going forward and know that you got somebody for like the next 10, 12 years, it's probably J.C. Latham.
I love him. He's a good kid, man. There's so many tackles this year. If we don't get a tackle this year, it'd be criminal. It'd be criminal if we don't get a tackle this year. But J.C. Latham is a dog, man. That kid can play. Strong, fast, fleet-footed, 60-minute player, 4 quarters, whatever you want to do, man.
Yeah. Great. There's other guys, too. Patrick Paul from Houston is a tremendous player. Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. Kingsley Sumatea from BYU. Jordan Morgan from U of A. The big kid from Duke. But to me, J.C. Latham looks like just an absolute monster. Just an absolute monster. Mm-hmm. Coach, have a great Saturday, man. Appreciate you. And we'll talk to you next week, hopefully after a Niner win.
Hey, thanks, Larry. Hey, let's go through. I want to be wrong. I need a Niners win.
What's your prediction tomorrow? I'm going to say I'll predict Niners to win, but, man, I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be like, maybe 24-21, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I would say 24-17 Jags.
Ooh. Oh, my God. Thanks to Marin Autoglass, marinautoglass.com. Thanks to New York Style Italian Sausage. Thanks to Mojo Fantasy. And, of course, the title sponsor of the Krueg Show, Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California for the coach. And thanks to all the chatters and all the super chats and all the sponsors and everybody. Have a great Saturday, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.